This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
And that would be me. Welcome to this Hump Day version of Kentucky's Voice. Jim Waters here with you, as we are each weekday here on live on the radio, 970 WGTK. And you can catch us on television, channel 21 WBNA, right here in great Louisville, Kentucky, this afternoon at 4 o'clock, as you can every day. And, this is Kentucky's Voice. Somebody says, well, what is Kentucky's Voice? Well, this is a conservative, common sense media outlet that covers stories, offers analysis and opinion from a conservative point of view. We are not ashamed of saying that. We are very forthright about that, and we believe that we have a conservative audience. If you'd like to weigh in on anything you hear today on our topics, give us a text. I guess give us a text on the Kentucky's Voice text line at 502-571-0970. And, you can also partner with us here on this program by contributing and helping us grow this conservative media outlet by texting KY Voice to 53555. Our focus here, defending liberties, celebrating community strength, upholding principled conservatism, high character, and timeless traditions of and faith here. We don't avoid stories about faith. We when it's a part of the story, we report it. When it's a conservative point of view, we give it. And we are also looking. You can partner with us by giving, but you can also partner with us by helping us build the next generation of conservative journalists committed to truth, integrity, and traditional values. What we're looking for are some citizen journalists. If you're interested, reach out, jim.waters@kyvoice.org. If you're passionate about local politics or national politics, state politics, if you're just passionate about politics, period, maybe you want to cover stories in your community, you want to defend liberty, you're interested in ensuring that the Constitution survives and thrives for future generations. Maybe you're a college student. You'd like to join us. Maybe you're looking for some experience in journalism or communications, or maybe you're a political science major here in a Kentucky university or college. We'd like to hear from you. We'd like for you to work with us and help us build this conservative media outlet, and in return, you will get some great experience and work with some great people. Maybe you're an aspiring media pro or just someone eager to spread the conservative message. Give us an opportunity to work with you. We'd like to work with you. Become a citizen journalist. Reach out, jim.waters@kyvoice.org. We have several roles available: field reporters, video contributors, radio correspondents, writers, researchers, campus correspondents. We're focused on Kentucky. We're focused particularly in the Louisville area, but also statewide, as you're going to hear on today's program, issues that are going around our state. So a great opportunity here to gain experience, cover stories that many times the corporate media miss or just don't cover. So let's join together, let's amplify our voices, and let's build this conservative media outlet called Kentucky's Voice. We're certainly happy that you joined us today. Coming up on today's program, first of all, we want to talk for a moment about the political buzz going on with some Democrats who are urging Governor Andy Beshear to skip the presidential campaign and to put his presidential ambitions to the side and run for Mitch McConnell's open U.S. Senate seat in 2026. This from a editorial in the Louisville Courier-Journal from California Democrat Adam Bass, who in an opinion piece wrote that Kentucky U.S. needs Beshear as a Democratic senator, not a president. He said, quote, "If Beshear decides to skip the Senate election and run straight for the presidency, that would be an absolute disqualifier for many Democratic primary voters like me. It would mean he put personal ambition ahead of the needs of the nation." So folks, really, Democratic establishment folks seeing the importance of competing for what's going to be a Senate seat that's up for grabs in the 2026 election. Adam Bass urges Beshear to ask, quote, what you can do for your country and bring bipartisan credentials and a steady hand to the U.S. Senate. Of course, this is going on because longtime Majority Leader Mitch McConnell announced he would not run in next year's election for re-election, that he is retiring from the U.S. Senate after serving there for more than 4 decades. I think conservatives feel like the Beshear's moderate image probably is going to be pushed to the side in a national race. If he gets national scrutiny and he has to satisfy the left of his party, that his moderate image may not survive that, showing how many vetoes he's had here on issues like school choice, on parental rights, on tax cuts, on spending cuts, on conservative policies. And with this legislature in Kentucky overriding him over 120 times during his tenure, and his inability to work with the legislature here certainly isn't going to help boost his moderate credentials. But pressure here for Beshear to run for Senate doesn't seem to be coming from Kentucky. I haven't heard anything about that here, but it seems to be coming from the left coast of the party, the elites who remember Beshear's VP bid to run with Kamala Harris in the last presidential election last year, and Adam Bass says a Senate run would boost Beshear's future presidential chances, but skipping it is an absolute non-starter. But folks, I don't know that Kentuckians really put a lot of stock in what the left coast elites are saying about this race. But it was interesting that ran here in the Career Journal, and that there are people apparently maybe behind the scenes urging Andy Beshear to run for the Senate seat and put a hold on his presidential ambitions. By the way, other Democrats in the race for the U.S. Senate seat: House Minority Leader Pamela Stevenson, Socialist Jared Randall. Of course, Andy Beshear would certainly be the favorite among Democrats were he to jump into that race. And it would be, I think, a pretty competitive race of conservative strength versus progressive push. And I think the conservatives are saying, hey, as much as we maybe dislike some of the things Mitch McConnell did, we certainly don't want this seat to fall into the hands of the Democrats. So I think there's going to be some money poured into this on the Republican side to ensure that this seat is kept by Republicans. Turning now to another race, the 6th congressional district race, with Andy Barr running for the Senate. The 6th district seat is up for grabs. Dems are seeing this as a chance to flip what they consider to be at least possibly a purple district. Erin Petrie, a 37-year-old businesswoman, has jumped in as a Democratic candidate. She's a bourbon blogger, Amazon Web Services sustainability specialist. That's how she describes herself. She pitches herself as a fresh voice focusing on opportunities for Kentuckians to stay or return home. And she criticizes heavily the GOP's Trump loyalty, cites rising energy bills, hospital closures, and says that, and her ad, and I'm sorry, I don't think I have time to play it now, do I, Dan? How long is that ad? Yeah, we don't have time to play that. But what she does in her ad is mix an old-fashioned cocktail that says, call me old-fashioned, but governments were built to serve the people, and I want to bring that back, so let me serve you in Congress. She's been very critical of Andy Barr's attempt to get President Donald Trump's endorsement in that race, and that will probably be an important endorsement and will be a race that will be looked at nationally for the possibility of Democrats flipping that seat. And it could mean the Republicans keeping that seat could mean they keep their majority in the Congress. So this is going to be an important seat for the Republicans to keep this red, for the Democrats to try to flip it. Andy Barr says, I quote, I've worked really, really hard to lock down the district for the GOP. And now he is running as a nominee for Mitch McConnell's seat. He's one of the 3 Republicans, him, Nate Morris, and of course, former Kentucky Attorney General Daniel Cameron. All 3 have jumped into that race. All 3 were at Fancy Farm. And I think Barr did the best job of the 3 candidates as far as his speech goes, as far as his presentation goes. Of course, there's a long way to go. I think Barr will draw the moderates. I don't know if he'll draw independents. I don't know if he'll draw those who are unhappy with some of the decisions Mitch McConnell's made, some of the big spending decisions they consider he's made, some of the votes against President Trump's nominees. Daniel Cameron has said if Barr thinks that his seat in Congress is vulnerable, then he should run for re-election in the House instead of running for the Senate. And that's sort of a little dig there that I think Daniel Cameron really knows that Barr is a formidable opponent. So what's going to happen here? Initially, I think a lot of people thought that Andy Barr and Daniel Cameron would split the vote of Mitch McConnell's vote and that Nate Morris would have an opportunity to push through to a win, but not so sure about that now. Anyhow, that's a look at the political update. Coming up next, though, we're going to switch gears. It's not just the federal or state government that can threaten your First Amendment rights. Our next guest has blown the whistle on locally elected officials as well. Stay with us for an update on a story we brought you earlier from southern Kentucky and Simpson County, next on Kentucky's Voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
The We the People Fall fundraiser is almost here. Join Kentucky's Voice September 8th through 12th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. daily. Together, we will stand for faith, family, freedom, and the Kentucky way. Do not miss it.
Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice here on Hump Day. Thanks for joining us. We want to hear from you, 502-571-0970 on any of the topics that we talk about today. Well, if you think that local government is sleepy, boring, or uneventful, you really don't know Joel Payton's story and what's happening in Simpson County, which borders Tennessee and South Central Kentucky. And our guest for this segment is Joel Payton, the courageous whistleblower and plaintiff in the recent lawsuit. Addressing ethics violations by Simpson County Judge Executive Mason Barnes. And Joel is leading a battle for free speech there in Simpson County. That's really a win for all taxpayers and all citizens. I think that's how he sees it. And I know that he values accountability and transparency in government. Joel, welcome to Kentucky's Voice. We're great honored to have you here with us today, sharing your story of a standing firm against abuses of power, even at the local government level.
All right. Sorry, Jim. Can't hear your audio on this end.
Okay. Well, we'll work on that. I'm going to start at the beginning of this story. Joel Payton filed a complaint against Simpson County Judge Executive Mason Barnes, who blocked him on social media after Joel complained about ethics violations in the local government, what was going on there. And Joel, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you joining us and appreciate the stand that you're taking there in Simpson County. And I know that you see this as not just about you, but really all taxpayers and all citizens having access to their government, being able to express their First Amendment rights, having their First Amendment rights protected. And I was just starting at the beginning of this story. You filed a complaint against Simpson County Judge Executive Mason Barnes. You wanted to ensure basically that he was aware of his obligations as a public official to follow the local code of ethics. These mean something. These code of ethics are important. Tell us a little bit about why you filed this and why this is so important, not just to you, but really to all citizens, taxpayers, all Kentuckians.
Yeah, sure, Jim. So this all started last year. I live in Simpson County in a rural area, next to a lot of farmland, and there was some farmland that came up for sale next to our neighborhood, and we found out the local industrial authority was wanting to build some warehouses next to us. So, I did some open records requests, found out some more information, about what was going on. Found out some questionable credit card charges that the industrial authority director had made. Soon after I found that out, he resigned. But in the middle of my research, I also found that Mason Barnes, the judge executive who sits on the industrial authority, he's a non-voting member, but he's also a home builder. I found that he had actually voted on a zoning change where there was some land sold from industrial authority for a house that he was building for a private citizen, and there was a zone change that happened. Basically, he's able to build a house before it was rezoned as industrial, and he didn't disclose this or when it was voted on in the fiscal court and recused himself. So I and some other neighbors filed a ethics complaint against him when we found that out, and the ethics board ruled against him and told him basically, not do that anymore. He needs to disclose that going forward. But soon after that, I went to his Facebook page because he posted a lot of updates there about community, and he actually posted something about me after the ethics hearings were found, and I found out that I was blocked. So that's where I got in contact with Liberty Justice Center, and they helped me fight this, because I shouldn't be silenced, or anyone else shouldn't be silenced, just because I held a local official accountable. Sometimes they have to hear some things from private citizens that are hard to hear, and Barnes blocked me after that.
Yeah, and that goes instead of. That goes to another problem here. Instead of engaging in an honest discussion about this, as you said, I think it would have been a lot different if he would have said, hey, I should have done this. I will in the future. Let's work together on this. There wasn't that. It was blocking you. It was like he didn't want to have anybody confront this. And that's a real serious issue right there. That really, I think, raises red flags at any level of government. The power that we entrust to elected officials, Joel, whether it be nationally at the state level or local level, that's power that we loan to them to serve the people, not to use it to benefit to build their own little fiefdoms or benefit themselves, right? So I think that really speaks to a serious issue there about how he sees this position that he serves in, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, it was troubling that he silenced me, and there may have been others who are blocked too in the community. But I'm thankful for the outcome of Liberty Justice Center helping fight this. The outcome of him unblocking me. This is not just about me, like you said earlier. It's about all residents of Simpson County, and hopefully it's a message to other local officials here in Kentucky that they can't do this. They can't block their constituents, and silence them. They should be able to have a voice and voice their opinion on social media. That's where a lot of interaction happens nowadays.
Yeah, that's right. You had pointed that out before that, Barnes frequently on his Facebook site, hosts live videos. He moderates discussions on there about important community matters. So this wasn't a personal page that he never, ventured into community discussions. I mean, that's all pretty much it was, or there was a lot of that on there. So when he blocked you, that was clearly, it wasn't like there was any doubt here about that he just didn't want to have a dissenting voice. And that's just not acceptable in terms of the First Amendment. We're going to have Dean McGee on here in a moment from the Liberty Justice Center. Great group and great organization, did a great job on this. but Joel, you know, we're speaking with Joel Payton, who filed a whistleblower lawsuit against Mason Barnes, the Simpson County judge executive. Can you give us an update then? Now there's been a settlement on this. What can you say about that? And why does this? What would you say to people who may be dealing with similar issues in their communities, especially in this age of social media? Some people may be intimidated about, you know, moving forward, or may not know that, hey, social media sites by elected officials, you know, they can't block people they don't agree with. That doesn't work.
Yeah. So the main point, you know, the main thing that I was seeking with this is just basically for me to be unblocked on social media. So, you know, that's what happened once the settlement happened. Barnes has unblocked me. I'm able to see his social media page. I'm able to comment, and you better believe that I'm commenting more often now than I ever was before because of this. But, you know, I think others, you know, other people should know, you know, even share the details about this case, or, you know, I know Dean's probably going to be talking a little bit about his case in Pulaski County too, but share those examples from Liberty Justice Center with your local officials if you're seeing that you're being blocked, so they can be educated and hopefully, you know, do the right thing and unblock people if they have them blocked.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, you know, Kentucky's open meetings laws does not allow local elected officials to, or do not allow local elected officials to block and to do anything that would silence the voices of especially their constituents that want to speak out. I hope that this will encourage people. I think it will encourage local citizens. You know, a lot of times these conflicts of interest and ethics violations go unnoticed. And so I want to thank you for your inspiring work here. I think it's a reminder that individual citizens can make a real difference in their local communities. And we appreciate it, Joel. Thanks for joining us today. And we keep on with the great work there, brother. Coming up in the next segment, we'll hear from Dean McGee of the Liberty Justice Center, the powerhouse team that helped Joel secure the First Amendment win. We'll dive into how they're fighting for free speech across Kentucky and beyond. Stay with us on Kentucky's Voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
The We the People Fall fundraiser is going on now. Learn how you can partner with us this week live from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. daily. Together, we will stand for faith, family, freedom, and the Kentucky way. Do not miss it.
And thanks for staying with us here on Kentucky's Voice. Jim Waters with you. You're hearing this live on the radio, 970 WGTK, and you can watch us this afternoon on television, channel 21 here in Louisville, WBNA, and catch us on YouTube as well, and all across the social media platforms. We'd love to hear from you. You can text us today if you have comments or questions about this program or what we're talking about today, 502-571-0970. And you can support us by texting KY Voice to 53555. All opportunities to partner with this conservative media outlet, Kentucky's Voice. Well, in the last segment, it was great to have whistleblower Joel Payton on to talk about his stand against viewpoint discrimination in Simpson County, Kentucky. And now we want to turn to the legal eagles who made his victory possible. Joining us is Dean McGee, Senior Counsel and Director of Educational Freedom at the Liberty Justice Center. The Liberty Justice Center is a nonprofit, nonpartisan public interest law firm that fiercely advocates for First Amendment rights, fights for freedom, protects small businesses, and stands with families. They provide these vital services, serving everyday Americans who face government overreach and ensuring constitutional protections are upheld nationwide. Dean, thanks for being here today and for your incredible work that your organization does. I always appreciate talking to you guys, and we had you on a few months ago, but glad to have you back today. So thanks for taking a few minutes here to join us.
Pleasure to be here, Jim. Thank you.
Now, you filed this lawsuit on behalf of Joel back in March after he uncovered these undisclosed conflicts of interest in land development projects That led to an ethics board finding against Judge Executive Mason Barnes. In response, Barnes blocked Joel from his official social media page and used it to attack him and others. I mean, this takes some real guts here. It's kind of bold. I mean, it's boldly wrong, right? But it was just amazing to me how bold that he was in doing this. And your lawsuit that you helped with Joel with invoked Supreme Court precedent, this 2024 ruling in, am I saying this right, Linkey versus Freed, clarifying that government officials are liable under the First Amendment for using social media to engage in viewpoint-based discrimination against constituents. This is a matter of law now, isn't it? So all elected officials should know their social media pages must be open to all, whether they agree or not with them.
That's right, and you hit the nail on the head when you were talking to Joel earlier. Elected officials, they've got First Amendment rights too, and if they want to have a completely personal page where they discuss their opinions and they choose to talk badly about constituents, they can do that. But what the Supreme Court has made clear is that once they're using those pages for public business, as Mr. Barnes was, the First Amendment governs as it should, and the most important bedrock principle in the First Amendment's protection of free speech is that the government can't discriminate against you based on your viewpoint, especially when that viewpoint is critical.
Yeah.
The First Amendment exists to protect criticism of the government from your local school board all the way up to the President of the United States.
Yeah, Dean, we hear a lot about this kind of in the national news, right, with whistleblower cases. But this case and others that you've worked on, we're going to talk about in a moment. But those prove that this local government can be either a great defender or a great enemy of First Amendment rights.
That's true, and often it's the officials in the local government level who are less aware of their obligations under the First Amendment. And we've seen that in Kentucky, but we've seen it around the country. And it's one of the reasons why we bring cases like this. Look, we bring cases like this because we hope we don't have to bring them again. Now, that hope, hasn't come true yet. But we do want to send a message to local officials around the country that this simply is not acceptable. And that once you step into the position of wielding government power, you cannot silence people because you disagree with them. You have to welcome and open up yourself to the criticism that comes with wielding that power.
Yeah, exactly. Well said. And if you don't want to take the heat, don't get in the kitchen, right? I mean, nobody's making anybody run for office here or serve. But if you're going to serve, you're going to have to understand how this works. I guess a lot of these cases probably are about local officials not knowing what their responsibilities are as much as maybe it is anything intentional. But in this case, it was really concerning that this local elected official doubled down on his wrongdoing instead of, as we said in the last segment discussed, opening up and admitting, saying, hey, I made a mistake here. We need to get together on this. But this isn't the Liberty Justice Center's only First Amendment victory in Kentucky. Earlier this month, you won another case against the Pulaski County schools where the system blocked a school choice advocate there who commented on his social media page. Corey DeAngelis, I believe, is a friend of this project. Talk a little bit about what happened there, why that matters so much in Kentucky.
Well, as I'm sure anyone listening to this show is aware, last year, Kentucky voters had the chance to vote on expanding school choice opportunities pursuant to Amendment 2. And what we saw in the lead up to the vote on Amendment 2 was school districts around the state were using their platforms, essentially using taxpayer resources to fearmonger and lobby voters against Amendment 2. So we saw that happening around the state, and we raised the alarm. Corey did too, as an advocate for educational freedom. And what happened when he did it in Pulaski County is that the school district blocked him, on their official social media pages. So this one didn't even have any nuance. There wasn't any argument that this was a personal page. This was an official government page that was caught doing something illegal, i.e. lobbying with taxpayer money, and then shut down, again, a whistleblower who was raising the alarm on their own social media page. And so we filed that case. And similarly, when faced with the law, when faced with the great Supreme Court precedent that we have from last year, they ultimately settled, unblocked him. And one great result in that case is that we insisted on, and they agreed to, training for their communications staff moving forward under the First Amendment, so that the people running those pages know what their obligations are from here on out.
Yeah, and that's so important to send that message, right, to especially for future elections, say, or future campaigns where we try to bring education freedom to the state. Those who are supportive of this, Dean, are already the underdogs here because of this very thing. We've got a governor who brought the radical Randy Weingarten from the American Federation for Teachers into our state to fearmonger across our state and tell our rural areas that that their public education systems would be destroyed if we had school choice and gave parents an option. And so they already had a big microphone here, and to be able to, a local school district to use their taxpayer funded resources to deny those same taxpayers the same option and freedom that other parents in other states have is just beyond the pale here. And it really was an audacious attack on freedom and on free speech here. And so I'm hopeful. Are you hopeful that this sends a message to other school districts and especially in the others in the public education establishment, that you can't use taxpayer-funded resources to deny parents freedom and school choice here?
Look, I'm eternally hopeful, but look, we're still doing the work we do because governments continue to break the law and continue to violate people's rights. But that was a really important message to send. Our case focused on the First Amendment, but underlying all of it was that illegal lobbying and the idea of taking taxpayer money intended for education and using it to lobby against expanding educational opportunities for kids was particularly pernicious. And I'm glad we got to take a stand against it.
Well, I certainly am glad too. We're speaking with Dean McGee of the Liberty Justice Center. Dean, across the country, what's happening with the First Amendment? We've got a couple of minutes left here. Across our state and other states, this is such an important right for Americans. It's something that sets us apart from other societies, other cultures. What are your concerns here in these days and times in which we live, especially with social media? Is there a concern that will be used to, in some way, to deny those rights? And is that going to require some more effort in that area?
Look, social media is an incredible tool. It's become the sort of public town square for so many of us. And so I just encourage people to be vigilant about their First Amendment rights digitally, but elsewhere too, and to really take a step back when you're thinking about the First Amendment and remember that it's important to defend the First Amendment rights of people you disagree with too. And that's for individuals and really for politicians, again, from the local level all the way up to the President of the United States, just to remember that, that government is not a tool to be wielded against people you disagree with at any level. And if we can all remember that, and if our elected officials can remember that, we'll live in a freer, better country.
Yeah, I'd rather there be some views expressed and maybe even some radical views that I don't agree with versus shutting down the voices and rights of Americans to speak. I may not agree with you, right? And which I do in this case, and but I'm saying in general, we might not always agree, but we should always defend the rights of our fellow citizens and Americans to express their views, because there's going to come a day when we need to express ours.
That's exactly right. And that's exactly right. And again, that's when it's really trying to defend the First Amendment, but in a way, that's when it's the most important.
Very good. Dean McGee, thank you for joining us today from the Liberty Justice Center. We appreciate your time and your efforts on this case and many others. Keep up the good work, and please come back and talk to us again.
That'd be my pleasure. Thanks, Jim.
Have a great rest of the day.
You too.
All right, thank you. And the First Amendment, folks, is important, and it's being defended by great attorneys like Dean McGee and the Liberty Justice Center. Up next on Kentucky's Voice, we're tackling why we should thank God that Kentucky hasn't fallen for dangerous no-cash bail policies like Chicago. where a violent Labor Day weekend left 8 dead and dozens injured. Here in Louisville, a judge's $500,000 cash bond for a DUI suspect in the fatal crash shows why our system works to keep communities safe. But some groups are pushing to eliminate cash bail entirely. Stay with us.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
The We the People Fall fundraiser is almost here. Join Kentucky's Voice September 8th through 12th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. daily. Together, we will stand for faith, family, freedom, and the Kentucky way. Do not miss it.
Back on here, Kentucky's Voice here on Hump Day, Wednesday. Thanks for staying with us here. You're listening to this live on 970 WGTK, and you can watch us on television this afternoon at 4 p.m. On channel 21 WBNA TV here in Louisville. Well, over the Labor Day weekend, Chicago reported 8 fatalities and dozens injured in shootings across the city, despite officials insisting they don't need federal help. This is after a July 4th holiday weekend in which there was also several shooting victims there in the city and other fatalities. A police veteran in a blue city, likely referring to Chicago, told Fox News that no cash bail policies he was referring to Chicago, told Fox News that no cash bail policies allow professional bad guys, he said, to cycle through the system committing crimes with little consequences. In Illinois, a 2021 bail reform law eliminated cash bail for many offenses, leading to quicker releases. Data from Cook County shows that while pretrial releases increased, rearrest rates for violent crimes remains low, about 5%, but high-profile cases of repeat offenders is fueling public outrage. How does this contrast with Kentucky, where judges can set high cash bonds, like the $500,000 cash bail set for a DUI suspect in Louisville who is charged with murder after accident on the I-265. Well, it was a crash on 265 that killed a 12-year-old girl, and the judge is saying we need a high cash bail here to keep him off the street. And she set the bail at $500,000 for that very reason, saying he was a danger. And according to WDRB, judges consider charges, criminal history, pretrial services reports to set bail, ensuring that those who pose a threat, like someone causing a deadly crash while driving under the influence, face real consequences. In Chicago, such a high bond might not be an option, potentially allowing dangerous suspects, perhaps even more dangerous than what we've seen here, back into the community. Kentucky banned for-profit bail bonds in 1976, relying instead on risk assessments and judicial discretion. And so the push to eliminate cash bail in many places has been successful in some of the larger urban areas, some of the larger cities like Chicago. And there are those here that would like to get rid of that. The Louisville Community Bail Fund stated on their Facebook page, they call cash bail a tool of, quote, systemic slavery, end quote, that creates financial barriers, citing the Ferguson uprising and Khalif Browder's tragic story of being detained for years over a low bail he could not afford. They aim to bail out individuals, provide post-release support, and focus on preventive measures for those targeted by law enforcement. And I think their intent is good here, but I think that critics are going to argue here that eliminating cash bail entirely risks releasing repeat offenders who will exploit the system. A 2019 study by John Jay College and Pew Charitable Trust found that 38% of Louisville's jail population was held for nonviolent felonies and misdemeanors. Could a no cash bail policy here lead to the same issues seen in Chicago? Well, when you're talking about nonviolent felonies and misdemeanors, that's a different category than folks who are charged with a serious crime like murder, like serious sexual offenses. And I think there's a difference. And that's why I think it makes a lot of sense here to give judges discretion in these matters. And that's what we saw here with what happened on Gene Snyder Freeway yesterday morning when a driver charged with DUI struck another vehicle and it resulted in death and serious injury to others in that vehicle. And I think supporters of this policy are going to say it allows judges to protect communities by detaining those who pose a clear danger, while ensuring that low-risk individuals are not unfairly held. And I think that while judges are not always going to get that right, just like they don't always nobody gets everything right, but I think giving judges, and I think judges are, for the most part, committed to following the law, certainly at the local level. Judges at the local level have to live in the communities under the laws that they are charged with making judgments based on. So it's in their best interest to do the right thing for the community as they live here. And it might not be the same with some political situations with federal judges and other issues. But I think when you're talking about local judicial rulings, I think for the most part, we can trust local judges to make decisions, the right decisions. And when they're not the right decisions, and we've pointed out some of those that weren't right here on this show in the past, but it's much easier for the local community to hold those judges accountable than, say, a federal judge or someone obviously in Washington, D.C. or some other part of the country. So these local judges, they have to see their constituents. They run for office. They're voted into office, and they have to face them every day. They have to face the consequences of their own decisions and sentencing in courts and their own approach. So I think this is the best policy that we have here, is because if you rule it out completely and you don't allow judges the option of a cash bail, then and especially in an urban area like Chicago or like Louisville, if you have a shooting suspect, especially those who have committed violent acts in the past, those who already have a record, those who have demonstrated that they don't care much about the law or obeying it, those who have threatened others, or those who have committed, as we said, acts of violence in the past, I think judges should have the right to say, hey, you're a danger to this community. You've proven that you're not going to abide by the law. And certainly you don't have much personal motivation to do so, or personal responsibility here. So we're going to protect our community by holding you and judging the risk that you pose to the community in terms of a bail. And look, this isn't perfect. It's not, no system is perfect. But I think supporters are going to say that while Kentucky's system is not perfect, we have overcrowding problems. We've had issues here in the Jefferson County Jail with deaths of prisoners. That's a serious issue that needs to be addressed. We have jails and prisons here that are stretched thin. And there are inequities in the system that need to be addressed. But I think to just go the route of this bail project and say we're going to completely get rid of cash bail as an option for judges, I don't think that's the right policy. I'd like to hear from you today. What do you think about that? 502-571-0970. Should judges in Kentucky, should judges in, especially in Louisville, Lexington, our urban areas where we have certainly a lot larger population. Obviously, Louisville's has a serious issue with violent crimes. Would getting rid of cash bail, I'm not quite sure how I understand or how I would try to explain that getting rid of cash bail here would somehow or other help make our community safer. And I think that should be the goal here. It should not be simply about the numbers, but what is it that's going to make our community safer, and can we show that? Do we have the evidence from other states, other communities? Do we have the data to show that certain policies will make the community safer? And that's what criminal justice reform policies really should be about. Unfortunately, politicians use these policies too many times for political gain, and that has caused inequities in the system. That's caused problems in the other direction, where I don't think we should have a lock them up and throw away the key policy, especially for individuals who should be working, who should be rehabilitating themselves, who should be allowed to be productive members of society who should be given another opportunity, another chance, some second chance policies that we're going to be talking about on this show and that will be discussed, I think, in the legislature in this upcoming session and future sessions, giving those who, especially those who have committed nonviolent offenses, giving them opportunities to go back to work, to take care of their families. I mean, think about that. When we put somebody in jail, we put somebody in prison, oftentimes it's taxpayers that have to end up taking care of their families because their families then have to go on welfare. They have to depend then on social services provided by the government, provided by taxpayers. And so I don't see how that really is the answer as well. And considering the fact that we have 100,000 job openings in our state across all sectors, service, manufacturing, all kinds of jobs here. And we have training programs that are available and could be useful to getting some of these nonviolent offenders back to work and filling some of these positions and living a productive life in their community, giving them another chance. I think a lot of people would take advantage of that. Certainly not everyone will. And I think that's where judges need to have the freedom and have the flexibility to decide whether somebody is a danger to their community if they let them out, or whether somebody should have to put up bail just because of the risk that they pose. And I think that's entirely reasonable. And we're all about common sense policies here. Maybe you don't agree. Maybe you think the cash bail system does cause inequities that we should address by getting rid of it. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are, why you think that. 502-571-0970, and what your reasoning is, and what your proof is that that's going to make our communities safer. And that should be, again, the goal of criminal justice reform. What are the best practices? What have we found from other states? What have we found from other cities? There have been other cities that have lowered their crime rates, lowered their homicide rates. It's something that Louisville needs to do. If we want to attract business and opportunity to our state, the education system has to be addressed. We have to address our tax and spending policies. We have to address many areas, including crime and public safety. So the reforms should be about making our communities safer. And I think there's a lot of desire to do that by elected folks, but sometimes politics get in the way, and pleasing the political crowd also gets in the way. So we need to understand what is it that makes our communities safer and go for those policies. Thanks for joining us today here on Kentucky's Voice. Jim Waters saying have a great rest of the day. God bless.